Society has a deeply ingrained, almost pathological habit of romanticizing frauds. We look at the crocodile, and thanks to decades of heavily edited wildlife propaganda, we see a prehistoric relic. We are told to accept it as an apex-killing machine, a perfect biological weapon, a dinosaur that survived the extinction event purely through sheer grit and primal perfection. We are sold this absolute lie by nature documentaries that feature dramatic booming bass drops every time a crocodile so much as breathes near the surface of a murky river. I am going to ruin the crocodile for you because it deserves to be ruined. The crocodile is not a perfect apex predator. It is a highly circumstantial, heavily nerfed swamp romba that min-maxed its evolutionary skill tree so catastrophically poorly that it practically requires a lengthy terms and conditions agreement just to exist in the wild. This creature is a walking swimming caveat. It is an absolute complete fraud. Let us begin with its supposed crown jewel. The one thing everyone immediately respects about this animal, the bite force. You've heard the terrifying numbers, 3,000, 4,000 pounds per square inch of bone-crushing, unadulterated pressure. It is marketed to us as the hydraulic press of the animal kingdom. But here's the catastrophic design flaw that the crocodile PR team works overtime to suppress. You see all of that immense terrifying power? It is strictly one-directional. The muscles responsible for slamming those jaws shut are the biological equivalent of a nuclear reactor. They are massive, dense, and horrifying, but the muscles responsible for opening the mouth are powered by a single corroded AAA battery that has been sitting in a kitchen drawer since 2012. You could literally hold a fully grown, theoretically man-eating crocodile's mouth completely shut with a standard office rubber band, a strip of cheap duct tape, or just a moderately firm handshake. It is the ultimate glass cannon. Imagine having a state-of-the-art bazooka, but the trigger weighs 400 pounds, and you have severe asthma. That is the crocodile's mouth. It is an evolutionary joke. If an animal or a human in cargo shorts named Greg happens to land on top of its snout and just leans on it, the crocodile is suddenly rendered entirely defenseless. It is a one-trick pony, and if you counter that one highly specific trick, you're left with a scaly log that can only look at you with deep, unblinking embarrassment. Next, we have the metabolism cope. Crocodile enthusiasts love to throw out the fun fact that a large croc can go for months, sometimes even over a year, without eating a single meal. They frame this as some sort of elite, unstoppable superpower. Look at this resilient beast defying the biological need for sustenance. No, let us stop the spin and call it exactly what it is: metabolic poverty. This is not a flex. Going a year without food is not a tactical advantage. It is a biological equivalent of being chronically unemployed and living off the condensation of your bedroom windows. The crocodile's metabolism is so abysmally slow because its body is fundamentally incapable of generating its own energy efficiently. Warm-blooded animals eat constantly because they are actively funding an internal furnace. They are the dynamic CEOs of their own bodily functions. The crocodile, meanwhile, is living in an unfurnished studio apartment with the power shut off, trying to convince everyone on social media that fasting is a deliberate lifestyle choice. It doesn't eat for a year because it literally lacks the internal engine capacity to process anything faster. It is surviving purely on evolutionary copium and whatever rotting carcass it managed to trip over 3 seasons ago. And speaking of that non-existent internal furnace, let's talk about its temperature dependency. The crocodile is an ectoderm. That is just a polite scientific term for solar-powered fraud. You see, a true apex predator should be ready to throw hands at a moment's notice. A lion, a tiger, a bear, they wake up and choose violence regardless of the local weather forecast. The crocodile, however, is at the absolute humiliating mercy of the meteorologist. If the sun goes behind a particularly thick cloud, or if the temperature drops a few degrees below its preferred comfort zone, this so-called prehistoric killing machine immediately turns into a swamp furniture. It becomes completely immobilized. You could walk up to a cold crocodile, draw a detailed mustache on its snout with a permanent marker, and it would not be able to have the energy required to stop. It is a predator that is effectively deactivated by a gentle autumn breeze. They are forced to spend over half of their day lying completely still on a muddy riverbank, mouths hanging wide open, practically begging the sun to charge their internal batteries, just so they can muster the pathetic amount of energy required to perform their singular mediocre jaw slam. Imagine calling yourself the unquestioned king of the river when your entire existence is heavily throttled by the overcast conditions. It's like an old smartphone that shuts down the second it gets chilly outside. Now let us drag this creature out of the water and examine its terrestrial capabilities, or rather, the complete unmitigated lack thereof. The crocodile is built for exactly one highly specific environment: murky, waist-deep water where it can hide and wait for something significantly dumber than it is to wander by. The very second it steps out of the water and onto dry land, it is exposed as a logistical nightmare. You might have seen those terrifying, sensational videos where people claim crocodiles can gallop. Let us be very clear right now. That is not a gallop. That is a desperate, uncoordinated panic attack. Its legs are sprawled out to the side like a poorly assembled cheap action figure. Its heavy belly drags on the dirt, collecting friction and debris like an unpaid parking ticket. On land, the crocodile is slow, cumbersome, and entirely useless. It has a turning radius of an 18-wheeler with 4 flat tires. If a crocodile charges you on land, you do not even need to run in a zigzag pattern to escape. You just need to step slightly to the left, and it will take the crocodile 3 to 5 business days to recalibrate its trajectory and face you again. It is an aquatic creature that stubbornly refuses to commit being a fish, resulting in a biological middle ground that excels absolutely nowhere on solid earth. And let us not forget the absolute unmitigated disrespect this apex predator suffers on a daily basis at the hands of the hippo. The dynamic between the crocodiles and hippo is not a rivalry. A rivalry implies a mutual threat, a battle of equals. The relationship here is strictly that of a heavyweight bully and a pathetic scaly nerd. Crocodiles share their African habitats with hippos, and the hippos treat them like living, breathing, chewing toys. Hippos are herbivores. They do not even eat meat. They have no nutritional reason to interact with a crocodile, but they will actively go out of their way to seek out a crocodile, pick it up in their massive crushing jaws and snap it in half, simply because the crocodile was occupying a volume of space that the hippo wanted to look at. Adult crocodiles would be peacefully basking on a riverbank, minding their own business, and a juvenile hippo, a literal toddler, will waddle over and start chewing on the crocodile's tail for teething practice. And what does the mighty prehistoric crocodile do in response? Absolutely nothing. It sits there and takes it. It swallows whatever tiny shred of pride it has left, packs up its dignity, and slowly waddles back into the murky river, knowing fully well that it is at its best second on the food chain in its own house. It is the ultimate cuckold of the animal kingdom, constantly getting humiliated by an oversized, chronically angry water pig that runs entirely on grass and sheer spite. But the profound disrespect does not end with the heavyweights. Let us scale it down to something even more humiliating. The crocodile has to deal with the Nile monitor. A female crocodile will lay her eggs and bury them carefully in the sand. She's supposed to be this fiercely protective, terrifying mother. Yet, a regular standard issue lizard, the Nile monitor, will just stroll right up to the nest. This is a lizard that weighs maybe 15 pounds soaking wet. It walks up completely, ignores the 1,000-pound armored dinosaur watching angrily from the shadows, casually digs up the nest and starts eating the legacy of the crocodile like it's an all-you-can-eat breakfast buffet. The crocodile loses its entire bloodline to an oversized gecko. The crocodile's evolutionary defense strategy is so deeply fundamentally flawed that it cannot even secure its own offsprings against a creature that spends its free time licking rocks and climbing trees. The Nile monitor does not even use stealth. It doesn't have to. It simply exploits the crocodile's pathetic terrestrial mobility and complete lack of tactical land awareness. It is biological theft in broad daylight, and the crocodile is completely powerless to stop a lizard from ending its genetic lineage. Furthermore, we need to completely debunk the myth of the crocodile's supposedly indestructible immune system. People love to spread this trivia about how a crocodile can lose an entire limb in a festering bacteria-ridden swamp and just walk it off without getting a fatal infection. They claim crocodile blood has magical antimicrobial properties that make it a medical marvel. While it is technically true that they survive in filthy environments, the reality of their day-to-day health is much less glamorous and infinitely more disgusting. They aren't immune to everything. They're just deeply fundamentally unsanitary. A wild crocodile is essentially a walking, swimming luxury hotel for parasites. If you look closely at one of these pristine killing machines, they are absolutely riddled with leeches, nematode, worms, and blood flukes. Their digestive tracts are a catastrophic writhing nightmare of parasitic infection. Their eyes get chronically infected, their scales rot off completely. They are not thriving in the swamp. They're merely enduring it in a state of constant low-grade suffering. Their immune system is less of a state-of-the-art high-tech defense grid and much more like a crumbling, overwhelmed government bureaucracy that has just decided to completely ignore the intruders because there are simply too many of them to fight off. They are not invincible super healers. They're just deeply gross infected logs. Finally, we arrive at the absolute peak of the crocodile's pathetic, humiliating existence. The tears. We've all heard the common phrase, crocodile tears, referring to fake, insincere crying. But the biological truth behind this phenomenon is far more embarrassing than simple emotional deception. When a crocodile tears into its prey, when it's supposedly in its element dominating another creature and proving its worth as a predator, it literally cries. Liquid aggressively streams from its eyes. Is it feeling deep remorse? Is it pondering the profound moral implications of its carnivorous lifestyle? No, it is crying because its skull architecture is an absolute unmitigated failure of engineering. The crocodile's sinus cavities and tear ducts are located in such disastrously poorly planned proximity to its jaw muscles that the simple physical act of chewing violently squeezes the tear glands. It is a mechanical glitch. The animal is just trying to enjoy a meal, and its own face is betraying it, squeezing out tears like a pathetic, over-emotional wreck watching a rom-com. Imagine trying to look intimidating while violently shredding a wildebeest, but you have fluids aggressively leaking from your eyes because your head wasn't designed with enough internal clearance for your own muscles. It completely ruins the entire aesthetic of the kill. It is the final ultimate insult to an animal that already lacks any real shred of dignity. It is a fraud, an absolute undeniable fraud. Nature is beautiful.